We ask that during the meeting that you use the microphones because it's WebEx meeting, so everybody can hear. And please silence your cell phones. This is a meeting of the joint City of Wausau Marathon County Homeless Task Force, and is dedicated to developing a shared strategy relative to the role of the City of Wausau and Marathon County governments in addressing the impacts of homelessness in Wausau and more broadly in Marathon County. Its mission is to consider the holistic support needed by homeless individuals, particularly those with mental health and substance abuse treatment needs, and determine the specific direct role for local governments beyond our work in fostering collaboration among various stakeholders, business community, local nonprofits, and faith-based and community organizations. So I call on this meeting to order, and the next item on the agenda is public comment. We have a 15-minute limit, and I know we have two folks that had signed up for public comment. The first one is Ron Alexander, and you have 3 minutes each, please. So come on up and please use the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Ron Alexander, 15420 Brandenburg Avenue, Merrill, in the Village of Maine. I'm optimistic that this task force will be able to make significant recommendations to design a comprehensive plan to address the issues and offer opportunities for many of those unhoused in our community. I believe that one of the components of this plan should be a sanctioned tiny home program with supports, keeping the participants engaged and using best practices that are available from many successful existing community models and experiences. This can be done without any funding from government sources once a site is acquired with proper zoning and needed building variances. This endeavor will require cooperation and agreement with governmental units, private nonprofit organizations, the faith community, and most importantly, representatives from our unhoused community. Emphasize that again, representatives from our unhoused community. All successful tiny home programs I'm aware of capitalize on the value of self-government to establish and enforce policies. It is tough to be unhoused in the Wausau area, and it seems that it is in the intent, right out of the playbook of Robert Marbut, homelessness consultant, who spoke in Wausau earlier this year. But this approach is not consistent with the state guidelines, which were spelled out by Mike Basford, who leads the Wisconsin Interagency Council on Homelessness, who spoke in Wausau on November 1st. To kick off Homeless Awareness Month. His message was to follow the Housing First guidelines and not to criminalize folks for being unhoused. These guidelines are not being followed in Wausau, but are supported by a growing number of local advocates and community members. So, in your deliberations, please seek various points of view and approaches. I thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Next up, we have Joan Josh.
Hi, I'm Joan Joss from Schofield City Council. I am just here as an observer, but homelessness is a prime passion of mine. My ward goes from Brickner's to Granddaddy's, so I have all the bars, all the restaurants, the northern end of Schofield. As I put it, the poorer end, not the country club set. But I love my ward. And what has happened is with the trailer park, a lot of the homeless have been coming down to the Schofield area. So they've been observed almost every morning with individuals coming out of the trailer park. amid no water, no electricity, the rats, the skunks, the other varmints. But it's a place to go. In fact, I saw a couple several months ago with a baby coming out of one of the trailers. So I've met with the neighbors, U-Haul, Cliffhangers, the gals at Eagle's Nest. They see a lot. And occasionally, Carla knows I volunteer at the Marty Bus on River Drive. I just have a passion for coming with a solution. And I don't think criminalizing, as Ron said, is the answer to the problem. I think we have to reach out and serve them in a much different way. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Next on the agenda, 3A, review of task force charter, including but not limited to objectives and timeline, future meeting topics, dates, times, and locations for the meeting. So we have a little bit of an agenda for reviewing the task force, but before we do that, I'd like to go around the table and have everybody introduce themselves. Give us a little background on, who you are, your passion for this task force, and what you would like to see come out of this task force. We start with Beth?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. My name is Beth Ann Richland. I am the Executive Director of Judicare Legal Aid. We serve the northern half of the state of Wisconsin, providing low-income people and Native Americans statewide with civil legal representation. So in that regard, we are the only representatives usually of low-income people who are being evicted from housing in the northern half of the state of Wisconsin. We are located only in Wausau. That's our only physical location, where we have our little Judicare car parked across from the bus station, and we travel to the other 32 counties in our service area. Because I reside here in Marathon County, I've been involved in quite a few of the original task forces on homelessness. I am one of the main authors of the original United Way plan to eradicate homelessness in 10 years. It was based on a large amount of research that I conducted on affordable housing in Marathon County, the lack of housing for families, and the decreasing amount of housing for the aging population. I also co-ran what was formerly known as Ranlin Homes for about a decade, located between 5th and 6th Streets here in Wausau. It was a 20-bed facility where we took in individuals experiencing homelessness who had a variety of issues, from past criminal backgrounds, alcohol and other drug abuse issues, and could not be located in other facilities, usually the main shelter in town. So that's my main interest in homelessness. I am a little bit surprised to see that I was listed as like the advocate for the homeless. I don't think that it's great practice to not have somebody who is themselves previously unhoused on the task force. That's usually a best practice. And I think maybe we're a little bit further down in the path for me to have corrected that. But I think I will do my best to visit all of the providers during the period and try to get some unhoused perspectives on some of the items that we discuss. And hopefully if we continue into the future, we can consider somebody who is previously unhoused or is currently unhoused.
I'm Diane Sunholz. I'm the Executive Director of North Central Community Action Program. My agency has one homeless program, our program for the homeless. It's called a Permanent Supportive Housing Program for those who have a lot of challenges. They do have to have a disability, whether that be an AODA issue, meaning an addiction, or a drug addiction, alcohol addiction. They can be mentally challenged. It can be any kind of a disability, but they do have to have one to be eligible for that program. I'm on this committee because people think that we deal mostly with the homeless when really we deal with mostly the low-income population, and we have a variety of housing programs to help those who are on the cusp of homelessness, because we know that if you can keep somebody from being homeless, that's of course, the best option. So we try really hard to help all of those individuals and families to remain housed and stable. We do a lot of referrals to community services. We help a lot of people navigate the community and the environments that they're in. We try and help them with budgeting. That's one of our big things because we know that a lot of families might not have had the education that they really need to set up a household budget and to remain stable. So that's one of our big focuses. I'm on this committee because Lance had asked, and I'm typically on a lot of other committees that deal with the homeless. We do see a lot of homeless at the CPC, the Community Partners Campus. That's where we're housed. I see a lot of community partners here that work with me on this population, and all of us want to find a good solution. We don't want to criminalize homelessness, but all of us know that many of the homeless, they can't help where they're at. I mean, there's a variety of situations, but also many of the homeless do have the ability to help themselves, and they choose not to. And as we go on with this committee, I will go more into that, but that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vicki Tilka. I am with North Central Healthcare, and I'm the Managing Director of Community Programs, which basically means that I have oversight of our behavioral health services with North Central Healthcare. North Central Healthcare serves Marathon, Lincoln, and Langlade in all the variety of services for behavioral health. Prior to that, I worked with Marathon County, so I have knowledge of Marathon County government as well as social services. And so certainly have been involved in my whole career as a social worker and then through administration. With people who are at risk of losing housing, our most vulnerable populations, as well as those who are unhoused. Personally, I'm being asked to represent North Central Healthcare because of the component regarding treatment. As we know, many people who are unhoused also have mental health diagnosis and substance use disorder. And treatment is something that definitely is available to them, and it's the key in terms of what would be accessible, what would be acceptable, and what would be beneficial to people at any given time. So that's really what I'm here to talk through and hopefully offer some guidance and suggestions. The other piece that I hope to offer the committee is my experience with projects and organizational effectiveness in general, and really wanting this committee, to the extent that the city council and county board is authorizing, to come up with effective and sustainable solutions versus quick solutions that might feel good in the moment and really are not sustainable. Many times as communities, we do that. We say, you know, this will be helpful, this will be something great. We put resources and time into it, and it really doesn't solve the issue. So I would really like to see, again, to the extent that whatever our marching orders are here, that we are able to make recommendations of something effective and sustainable, and we define what that population is that we really are going to prioritize as well.
Hello. My name is Kent Olson. I own Olson Tire and Auto Service in Wausau, Wisconsin, along with Olson Auto Body and Paint. I am kitty corner from the courthouse right downtown here. I moved here in 1987 from Minneapolis area. I love Wausau. I think I'm being asked to be a part of this, partially to represent businesses, how businesses can help participate, how we can partner, yet also to represent some significant concerns. Many of you are customers or have been customers of mine, and you know, I have a downtown location with outdoor seating area. Used to have a Subway. God knows that didn't make it. Did for many years. But we have an outdoor seating area that is a regular access point for calling the police, involved with alcohol use, somewhat of a condition that is difficult. And as a business and an investor who has spent a lot of money and grown fairly significant relationships with the city, and as a taxpayer of that, I'm here to represent that side of the equation. Just so you know that I'm not just a critical person, those of you know, I'm also involved in something called the Wisconsin Automotive Truck and Education Association. And we created, through our energies and efforts, a program called Wheels to Work, which is to help those people in the poverty level gain some traction, where obstacles for transportation is one of their primary obstacles for them being able to get, particularly where bus routes don't go, et cetera, for them to be able to become upwardly mobile. So I have created organizations and councils, of which Diane refers to, that she actually is on our Wheels to Work board. And we've worked closely with a lot of the other organizations trying to figure out where we can move people. Perhaps some of the rationale or reasoning behind that is that we believe that there's a large percentage of the people that with help, we as industry always need additional staff. So if we have an opportunity to move some of these people into some gainful employment and a pathway, it helps them to gain traction throughout their lives. So I guess that's why I was asked to be a part of this, and not sure what I can bring, but I'd be happy to do that. So.
I'm Craig Vincent. I came to Wausau 4 years ago to be the director of Bridge Street Mission. I had served in similar roles in larger cities that had rescue missions. Currently, the mission really runs the gauntlet of care in the community. We are both compassionate, where we're doing a day center and meal service to 90 to 130 people a day, where we're serving a meal. We're a location where the homeless can hang out and be safe and warm. But then we also are transformational in that we have programs currently for men. That is a recovery program that helps move people from crisis toward success. And we hope to do that on our new campus that we've relocated to at the Pied Piper Plaza, to be able to add that programming for women as well. So, obviously I have a lot to be concerned about, as we all do on our own businesses, our own responsibilities, but we also want to be part of a bigger solution, even on things that we're not doing beyond our ministries. And so my hope is that I can able to help the city and this community beyond just what we're doing.
I'm Bill Conway. I'm the other county board member for the board with Ron. I'm also the operations manager for Northern Valley Industries. So we hire everyone that has barriers to employment. And surprise, surprise, unhoused and homeless folks have a few barriers. So we currently have, I want to say, 17 unhoused people that we're employed, and another 7 more bridge streeters that come out. We've had success in getting people housed. We started that initiative this year. Me and our executive director, Sherry Wade, decided to give that a try and see if we could do something. We've had 10 so far that we've got off the streets, and with significant supports. We're hiring another. We have 1 support services person. Next year we're budgeting for 2, and we have a month and a half more to go, so maybe we'll get a couple more this year. But that's where I see the need of the support services, because I know there's a lot of drive to have, housing first is a perfectly good model with supports. You don't have the supports, you're setting people up to fail. I've seen that experience more than once. And I deal with a lot of the unhoused folks every single day. I have lunch with them. They're good folks, the majority. There are some that are not, that you get to deal with. So I know the let's not criminalize it message rings pretty loud, but I know there's more than one side of that story. So that's me.
Okay, thank you. My name is Terry Killian. I am the alderperson for District 3 in the city of Wausau. A little bit of background. I moved here from Rochester, Minnesota in 1975. I do have a registered nurse license, and I took my training at the hospitals affiliated with the Mayo Clinic before I moved here. I also have been practicing in the real estate industry since 1990, and I have my own real estate firm. I believe that Mayor Denny appointed me to this council or this task force because he knows of my genuine caring for the unhoused population. It's a story I haven't shared in the city, but I had, I had a beautiful, bright daughter who had a chronic disabling illness and became unhoused. And, you know, I hear very often that the unhoused have a choice. But what I have learned in my life is that the unhoused population is unhoused as a whole because of trauma, because of mental illness, because of drug dependencies. And it is my hope for this task force that we can come with some real positive help for the unhoused population in our area. And I am of the opinion that we all have our personal opinions about the unhoused population. We look to municipalities surrounding us for information about what's worked and what's not has worked. I've had the opportunity to communicate with doctorates from Cornell University and Boston University, and I'm going to ask them if it's okay with the task force, and if the task force approves, that they would communicate with us by Zoom. They did a research study in 100 cities in the nation, and it was a homeless study, and they have come up with some real expert opinions about what works and doesn't work for the homeless population. So if I can arrange that, I would like to provide that to the task force if it's something that everyone's interested in. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Barnes. I'm the chief of the Wausau Police Department. Boy, I have a lot to unpack here, so I'll try and keep it organized. Let me start with saying what, from a selfish standpoint in the police department, what I hope some of the outcomes of this are. Number one, I'm very excited that this group has been put together because the elected officials that govern my budget in the city of Wausau is the city council. We are fully aware that without the partnership of other jurisdictions, including county government, we've been saying this forever, we're not going to be moving the ball forward. So this is step one, and I really appreciate everybody being together and at least this collaboration between the county and the city. Because as a department head and for my staff, we're tired. One of the things that causes us to be tired, not out, we're just tired, is that we see gaps. We are every single day dealing with people where they are, learning about their condition, their experiences. And when we see these gaps, I hire staff to come up with creative solutions to complex problems. And they come to me with the gap and a solution. And I might go with the solution to the council. And we push the ball down the road. And we're like, where's the money going to come from for that? And I don't know. I'm not on the council. But what I as a department head want is this committee to come up with recommendations on what the role of government is and which governments should have a responsibility to be part of that role. Take that, advocate back to the elected officials who can then make some decisions and share that with myself as a department head. We have a lot of work to do, and if there is no desire or it is not the responsibility of the government entities to fund a program or to support a program, then we will take our efforts and apply them elsewhere and come up with things that fall within the parameters that are provided by our elected officials from a policy standpoint. So selfishly, that's what I'd like to see come out of this group. I don't know that we're going to create the formula that solves homelessness. I think there are communities that are doing well. There's communities that aren't doing well. And sometimes what worked in one community may or may not work in another community because we're all different. Which brings up, I think, to a point, Ms. Killian, that you brought up, that we deal with a tremendous amount of homeless individuals in this community. And if there's one thing that is not, I don't think is an opinion, I think is a fact, is that each of them have their own story, right? Some of them have no issues other than maybe not having the desire to go out and work hard. I've met individuals with that situation. I've also met individuals that absolutely have no ability to go out and care for themselves because of their disabilities. We have AODA issues, we have mental health issues, and how those issues came to fruition for each individual is their own story, and it's different than the person standing next to them. So we need to learn more about that in order to figure out what is the particular solution for a particular individual. The police department has been the de facto city department to address homelessness. Prior to my tenure as chief, Chief Bliven took that upon himself, really because nobody else stood up and said, I'll do it. And so as a result of that, we currently employ Tracy Rieger, who is our homeless outreach individual who's out in the community and works hard to house people. That's why does she work for the police department? Who else is she going to work for? So what those type of services are and where they belong is something that I think the collective experience in this group would have a great ability to make recommendations for. Additionally, we watched over the last 3 or 4 years the value and the quality of life, specifically in the downtown Wausau area, which I would say is ground zero for the unhoused population. We watched the quality of life diminish here. People's ability to feel safe utilizing our parks and our library and our downtown area as a result of behaviors of some of our unhoused population. And so I take issue with the word criminalizing of homelessness, at least as it goes in regards to my staff, because what my staff criminalizes is criminal behavior. So when crimes are committed, it's their job. They enforce the crimes. And so if there's a desire to eliminate or to reduce the criminalization of homelessness, then my hope is that the programming, that recommendations from this group that can be moved forward minimize the criminal behavior that we see within this population, within the city. And we have a responsibility to protect the constitutional rights of every single citizen in Wausau. That includes housed individuals, unhoused individuals, as well as the property of all individuals. And so it seems to me that different populations within the city are impacting others and others' value and the things that they've worked for. And so to find a way to create balance and have programming that minimize the condition as opposed to trying to create policy that says we don't hold people accountable for their behaviors would be a hope I have for this committee and a conversation that we can have. And lastly, I appreciate the public comment that we received. There was advocating for a certain group. Ms. Killian brought up experts that have done some research, as well as Robert, I think it's Morbit, that I met with him. He came to town, gave presentations. Like, there's components of what everyone says that I think would work in this community. Every time I've participated where we look at all the different individuals providing assistance, there are issues where they are diametrically opposed in whether that is the right solution here. And our elected officials, I think, are going to rely on us to advocate in one direction or the other in order to give them what they need in order to vote and make policy decisions that impact city and county departments like myself. So I'm very excited to be here. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Good afternoon. I'm Becky McElhaney. I am a city council person from District 6. I also have a background. I've worked in human services most of my adult life. I'm currently an RM case manager for a managed care company. And we all know I work with low income people that trying to get resources to keep them in their homes. People with mental illness, people with disabilities, you name it. I've also worked with the new refugee population. And so I'm very familiar with local entities like Forward Service Corp that administers the W-2 program here for low income, people without jobs. It's has that for people with that have dependents. I'm very aware of the FSET program, the Food Share Employability Training Program, that has an office here that works with food share recipients. I think we need to tap into every agency in this area in order to work on this problem. There is not a one size fits all. I've heard, I've been an alder for 9 years now, and I've heard about just fix it. I have emails, just fix it. I don't care what you do, just fix it. There is no way to just fix it. I met with Ron last night, and as we were talking about this task force, and I said, you know, if I had the ability with my magic wand to fix it, I'd be a much richer person, because many or most communities are dealing with this issue. You know, we have a housing crisis for everyone. Housing is just unaffordable. It is not because it's the city of Wausau. It's not because it's the state of Wisconsin. It's just our economy and what has happened with housing. Rents have skyrocketed. We have that. We have this area has seen a lot of substance abuse problems, mostly alcohol in this community. We have plenty of drug issues as well, but that has been a culture of what we have here. That hasn't helped. What I hope we get from this is, I feel like this, as a city council person, we have been swimming furiously to keep our nose above water on this. And I am so satisfied and so happy that the county has started this task force, because we can't do it alone as the city of Wausau. We cannot. Our taxpayers can't, you know, fund every initiative that we would like to. We can't come up with programming. Tracy Rieger's a good, a good example. She really should be under case management somewhere. She should have a social worker case manager as a boss, as a mentor. We don't have that. We're a city of Wausau. We do not have a social services department. We are not imbued by the state to have a social services department. And I don't want to start case management department in the city of Wausau. It just isn't, it's not part of our city duties. So we have to rely on the county for those type of things. And I hope we can all work together, because we all have a piece in this puzzle. And I hope the first step is bringing everybody into this room so we can discuss how we all can play a part to get to solutions. I also hear a lot that this is a city problem. I think the chief can very much tell you, and other people that work with the unhoused population, they're not all City of Wausau residents. They come here because we have the Community Partners Campus. They come here because we have Tracy Rieger. They come to the city because we have those type of services. We have Bridge Street Mission. But we all play a part in coming up with solutions to helping the residents from whatever municipality, whatever adjoining community, wherever part they're coming from. And our goal is to keep them where they are closer to their community. That's where they'll do the best. So that's another piece of the puzzle we need to work on. So I'm really optimistic that we can come up with some of those puzzle pieces and put them together, and at least have a small path going forward. Thanks.
Becky is also our co-chair. So thank you. A lot of wonderful background and information and feelings about the task force. I'm Ron Cavelli. I, like Kent, moved here in 1987 as well. So I've been around about 37 years around Marathon County, mostly in the rural areas. I spent a little bit of time living in the city, but not much. I came out of the U.S. Air Force before I moved up here as a non-commissioned officer working on jet aircraft, in-flight refueling systems and flight controls. When I moved to Marathon County, started a career in manufacturing, and have been in the quality manager role in manufacturing and working on continuous improvement, problem solving, and things like that. I've been a foster parent, so very familiar with the foster care program. And I'm on the Health and Human Services Committee. I've been on there, this is my second term on that committee. I'm on the McDevco Board of Directors. I'm also on the Granite House Board of Directors, which used to be Community Corner Clubhouse, if you remember that. So I've got a little bit of background on, some of that. I'm not a homeless expert. Where my expertise comes in is, and Vicki touched on it a little bit, is problem solving. I use tools every day for problem solving. In fact, about 2 hours ago, I just finished an event at work for problem solving. So my favorite tool is the DMAIC process, if you've ever heard of that. It's define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. If you follow the steps in the DMAIC process, you'll stay on track for coming up with a good solution instead of a short-term solution that might not work out, like Vicki talked about. So what I'd like to do is move on to reviewing the task force charter, and then we can talk a little bit about what DMAIC means and how it works, if that works for everybody. This is your task force and our task force. We're advocates for the homeless. So in reality, we have a lot of experience. We have some really good background on all of our different expertises. So I think this is a pretty powerful group. I think we can move mountains with all the expertise on this task force. So let's take a look at the charter. It's a joint City of Wausau Marathon County Homelessness Task Force mission statement. The joint City of Wausau and Marathon County Government Homelessness Task Force is dedicated to developing a shared strategy relative to the role of the City of Wausau and Marathon County governments in addressing the impacts of homelessness in Wausau and more broadly in Marathon County. Its mission is to consider the holistic support needed by homeless individuals, particularly those with mental health and substance abuse treatment needs, and determine the specific direct role for local governments. Beyond our work in fostering collaboration among various stakeholders, business community, local nonprofits, faith-based, and community organizations, information gathering objectives, unhoused population demographic assessment and data collection received a presentation from the City of Wausau Outreach Specialist Tracy Rieger and other identified individuals relative to the demographics and needs of the homeless population in Marathon County, with a particular focus on understanding employment status, history, age, gender, justice-involved status, community of residence origin, and other pertinent demographic data. Shelter and housing availability assessment. Receive information relative to the shelter and housing, i.e. emergency, transitional, and permanent, support resources available to the homeless community. Mental health and substance abuse treatment services. Review the results of the continuum of care gaps analysis being conducted by Marathon County. Other community experiences, positive and negative. Solicit presentations related to the experiences of other communities, including the City of La Crosse and La Crosse County, particularly relative to pitfalls to avoid and lessons learned. Other information as needed. The task force is empowered to gather other information as needed. Policy recommendation goals. The task force shall provide the following deliverables within the time frame provided. Reports shall be provided in written form. In the short term, within 30 days, provide a recommendation to the City of Wausau and Marathon County governments as to whether acquisition of the Annabelle Apartments housing complex should be pursued to ensure its preservation as a transitional housing asset. Intermediate term, within 45 days, provide a recommendation to the City of Wausau and Marathon County governments as to whether the demographic data gathered necessitates the development of a formal mechanism to engage surrounding municipalities relative to resource sharing. And long-term, within 90 days, provide recommendations relative to the specific roles of other local municipalities, particularly those surrounding municipalities and those that have transported unhoused individuals to the City of Wausau to access services, in developing and implementing a sustainable system of services. identify gaps in existing mental health and substance abuse treatment resources, and make recommendations as appropriate relative to the needs of the homeless population in light of services available via non-governmental providers and the mandates and physical limitations of local governments. Engagement of the business community. Explore opportunities for businesses to contribute resources, expertise, and support to homelessness initiatives and report on findings. Support from nonprofits and faith-based organizations. Report on the services provided by local nonprofits and faith-based organizations relative to transitional housing, transportation, and other supportive services for homeless individuals. Identify opportunities to maximize the effectiveness of these initiatives and enhance comprehensive support for those in need. Task force shall consist of representatives from following stakeholder groups: elected officials, 2 members of the City of Wausau Council, and 2 members of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Business community leader representative, local nonprofit organizations serving the homeless population, faith-based organizations involved in homelessness initiatives, mental health and substance abuse treatment providers, government agencies responsible for behavioral health services, law enforcement and housing, homeless population advocate. Task force shall be co-chaired by 1 member of the City Council and 1 county board, identified by the respective appointing official for each body. The co-chairs are responsible for facilitating meetings, coordinating activities, and representing the task force to external stakeholders. Reporting and accountability. Progress reports shall be submitted to relevant government agencies no less than as provided above. The task force shall operate transparently, with decisions made through consensus building and collaboration among members. The Marathon County Homelessness Task Force shall operate for an initial term of 100 days, with the option for renewal based on ongoing needs and objectives. Any questions on the charter? Or comments? Please use the microphone. Thank you.
Sure. As I looked at our first 30 days, I think the opportunity, my understanding, and Craig can clarify, but the opportunity to purchase that property has passed. So I think we can line that one out.
Okay.
Yeah, I can confirm that for you. Yes, so we
Okay.
actually are closing on that in December. It is going to remain housing, though, which is good news. And so the group that is purchasing has already got some permission to go in and start renovating in advance of closing so that it can stay a housing option for people. So I can't speak to exactly how much they're going to charge and different things like that, but obviously it's going to be small efficiency apartments, many with shared bathrooms. So it's going to be on the lower end of the spectrum for housing. So that is obviously takes it off the table here, but I think in general it's good news for the community.
Then secondarily, I would ask the committee, trying to be responsible with everybody's time and how these meetings run. There are some of the things that you discussed as going through our goals that can be provided in writing to everyone to at your own leisure to be able to go through it and pay attention to. And so one example and something that I think is worthwhile, we talk about the amount of housing the housing stock that exists within Marathon County, and we know we're thousands and thousands of units of housing short. A very comprehensive investigation and report exists currently that we can all get copies of that talk about what are the units of housing that were short and over what period of time. I think that's relevant for everyone, Matt's opinion. And secondarily, we at the police department, we produce a report monthly to the Public Health and Safety Committee that has data and statistics from our different shelter providers. I don't think it's holistic that it necessarily has everyone, but it'll answer many of those questions. And if getting that information or a report put together for this committee in lieu of having a line of individuals for all these organizations show up and present is a more efficient and effective way for us to move forward and get that information. If I get that direction, that's something I can put together. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And this isn't Becky and I's committee, right? It's not our task force. This is everybody's task force. So I think that's a great suggestion. And I think, if everybody agrees, I totally agree with getting that report, absolutely. Is everybody on board with that? I'm seeing nodding heads, so that would be great. So thank you. Any other comments or questions on the charter? Go ahead, Beth.
I have a question.
Should be on.
I have a question about the timeline. Does it start today? Start the day we were appointed? It start today.
As far as the timeline goes,
This is what they call a 100-day sprint.
Yeah.
Right? So, which the city of La Crosse was one of the first to ever engage in a homeless. And the point of the sprint is to have all the decision makers at the table. So it's not on, is it? So the point of a 100-day sprint is frequently to have all the decision makers at the table. So this is not really a 100-day sprint. It's a 100-day sprint in this task force fashion to come up with recommendations to an external parties, right? The council and the county board, right? Sure. So, and so I think that in that regard, it is a little bit different. But I think I really want to know, like, if it starts today, it is meant for us to keep track of the 100 days and to move through it. So Chief Barnes is saying this is how we move through it. We get these things in writing. So the next time we meet, we all have had this baseline. We do the next part. The questions that are being asked are a little conclusory in my, opinion. And so I'm a little concerned about what I don't know about how this task force came to be, or like what the underlying parts maybe I am not part of. But the role of other local municipalities, which is mentioned in like 4 different areas here, what is that about? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is it like a shared financial responsibility? Is that what I should be reading into there?
Administrator Leonard, I don't know if you have any comments on how that came about.
Sure. I drafted I was the author of it based on meetings with not only Chief Barnes, the chair and vice chair of our Health and Human Services Committee. It should be on. Yep, it's on. And the sheriff, and the desire of a number of people to really get to your point, the decision makers, who are the people that hold the purse strings, are the county board and the city council. And this body is specifically, I think, my assessment from the charter that was approved by both bodies is to do that, gather information and make some recommendations on some really tough questions. One of those questions is, where is that line of whose responsibility is each piece? And what does it look like for all of the surrounding municipalities? What's the county's role? What's the city's role? Because to your point, it's not entirely clear. And I know Matt and I have had a number of conversations about this. We've talked about it at other meetings. It comes from a good place. Wausau, Marathon County has a lot of resources. They are located in the major metro area. That is not unique. That is not new. That goes back to feudal times. When stuff got real, you went to the castle. So the fact that we have North Central Healthcare, Aspirus, all of the providers here, people trying to do good work and help people generally bring people here. But what does that look like? What does that shared commitment look like? And I think to your point, maybe it is a financial contribution. Maybe it's, and I know Matt we've had conversations about this. I don't know if I have the answer. I know I don't. Yeah. But the experience is we have had people from far other counties help people get here to avail themselves of very sound resources.
Yeah,
But that puts strain on other resources. Sorry,
I
Matt.
don't have the answer for you on that, other than through our experience, we are fully aware that as it stands today, the city of Wausau residents subsidize all the surrounding communities, surrounding counties, because the city of Wausau is the funding source for many of the resources and the shelter resources specifically that exist. So, and, you know, I have my own.
And businesses, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I can tell you that I have a documented list of things that would really shock the conscience of pretty much anyone in how the humanity's lost in treating humans like a hot potato that quick, let me get rid of it, and then it's not my problem anymore. And including law enforcement agencies from outside the area that my spiel is, because this is true, under the cover of darkness at 2:00 in the morning, an unmedicated schizophrenic homeless woman is dropped off at the Quick Trip on Grand Avenue by an out of county marked squad car, and they get out as quick as they can. And when we call and say, turn them around, they're like, not it. And so the question is, one, who are the resources? Like, I don't know the answer to these, but I think this committee has the ability to provide guidance and answer the question. Number one, who are the resources in our community for? And two, the individuals that are utilizing these resources, let me back up. If the resources in our community are for come one, come all, and provide those resources, then is there a responsibility or an expectation on outside entities beyond the county and beyond the city to contribute financially to those resources? Because right now we are not at a functional zero. And the definition of functional zero in homeless lingo is we have the resources in our community that as an individual becomes unhoused or arrives unhoused in our community, our resources are having someone leave homelessness back into stability and financial stability and housing. And so if we have, let's just say the quantity of beds we have in emergency shelter right now is currently 30, unless we're in a weather emergency. So if we had 30 unhoused individuals in Wausau and we have 30 emergency beds, there's some stability to that. But the second someone new comes into town that needs that, now we're short. But if when they came in, we had someone leave homelessness and achieve success, that's that functional zero where we can manage and we have the resources to take care of that population. But we cannot have it grow and not have the programming in place for people to be leaving homelessness at the same rate. I see a nodding, Craig says you're much more knowledgeable than I am on this, but that's the problem we have, and none of the solutions. Nobody wants to pay, and nobody wants to say these resources aren't for you. But as it currently stands, I don't see it being sustainable because I also see the resources that exist being watered down, and then they're less effective for the population that we have here right now. So one, it's getting harder to do the work that needs to be done, and two, it's not getting any better, it's only getting worse. And I feel like we're bailing in a boat right now, but what we haven't done is plug any of the holes in the bottom of the boat. So eventually we're going to sink, and that's one of the roles that this committee has the ability to do the research and make recommendations, and some of those decisions might be hard to do. So that didn't answer your question, but I can tell you that's where that came from.
Thank you. And Becky, you feel free to chime in anytime. I don't want to be the only one speaking. So one of the things on our list is future meeting topics. And I think that Chief Barnes, if he can bring or provide the report, I think that will help drive some of the future topics on what that report looks like. And then anybody else, as far as bringing future topics, please let Becky and I know what you would like on the agenda, because then we'll get those agendized and put on them for the meeting. The next thing are dates. Oh, go ahead.
So again, I really appreciate that you do this for your living as problem solving, and I should have known that about you because I know when you ask questions, I'm always like, okay. So we have a similar mind in terms of how this works. So I'm probably not going to shock you here. When we have 100 days to complete recommendations, I agree with what Matt's saying is as much as we can do outside and bring the reports and read those in between and then have a chance to ask questions, that would be great. The other piece I'm wondering about is if we've considered having an external facilitator as we get towards the end of our time together to assist us in deliberation of recommendations, because I'm going to think you're both going to want to participate, which makes it difficult to facilitate a group. So I guess I would like to have consideration to that. That would help us to organize our thoughts and have a better product. The third piece is I'm wondering if the scope of what we're talking about, when we're talking about the unhoused population, is identified in here. I'm not exactly sure about that. So again, I'm wondering if we can spend some time doing that. Are we talking about the people who are unhoused now? What does that mean versus at risk of being unhoused? What are we talking about? I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Vicki. I think you're on track. And one of the things that the DMAIC process does is help bring that to light and what the scope actually is. So we do have in our mission statement that is to develop the shared strategy and the roles of the city and the county governments, what that looks like. So that's kind of our role and our mission is to, develop that strategy and what that looks like. So one of the first things that I would like to do is, we're talking about homelessness. Let's take a look at defining that. What does that mean? If I was coming in from the outside and I had to look at a brief statement on the problem, what is the problem? It's not just homelessness. It's something else. We have 200 homeless people that need some kind of support or something. So I'm just asking for ideas on what that problem statement looks like. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, if we could define if we're doing unhoused or homeless or, like you say, people that are in danger of, we have pretty decent folks already handling aspects of it, but depending on if the definition, it could go from about 75 to 100 to several thousand, if you're including couch surfing, people living with their folks, stuff like that. So, and if we do just like the visible people that are impacting the economic sector, that would be a smaller population, maybe more manageable. It's not going to help maybe the people that are going to need it the most, but we should figure that out first, I think.
Okay, thank you, Bill. So I think for the next meeting, if you can maybe put your thinking caps on to define the problem, bring your ideas, we'll come up with that statement and what that definition looks like. I know there have been numerous studies on homelessness and defining those problems, but it might be different for us, for Marathon County and the city of Wausau. So the next thing that we need to talk about in an effort of time here is dates and times. I know Becky and I spoke about dates and times yesterday. Our best day is Wednesdays and after 3 o'clock because we both have full-time jobs and I work in Antigo, and for me to get here anytime before that is a stretch. So whatever works for you, we can come up with dates, times, locations. I don't think it has to be here, does it?
Certainly not. If you're going to meet later, you'd make my day if it was not here. I know we talked, Kim and I haven't reached out to Caitlin, but I think city council chambers are also available on certain nights.
Wednesday would be best.
Yeah.
So I guess it's up to the task force on what their available dates are. If you guys could look at maybe your calendars and then the next day or so, shoot us an email. I think everybody's on the email list, correct? Everybody has gotten the email from either Lance or Kim.
like a parliamentarian question.
Sure.
Are we restricted to, like, if I want to provide written materials to the committee, if we are communicating as a group via email, is there a walking quorum in this type? Can you just cover how we share information?
question.
Or whether we should?
Where's Mike? I'm a lawyer in recovery. Short answer, it depends. Depends on how you use it. Certainly any email, like for example, to schedule a date, you all responding to a date and time when you're available is not a walking quorum. You're not attempting to influence the any vote. I would suggest in the interest of efficiency, picking it now is probably the best. You guys can check your calendars, but I would caution generally against individual members circulating materials and asking for comment. Certainly I'm able to, we haven't talked about staffing, but Kim or I or Caitlin, my sense is for the co-chairs, if you can funnel any materials to myself or to the co-chairs, we can then disseminate them. And again, I put at the bottom of all my emails, you have all probably seen, this email is not intended to create a forum for discussion, as doing so may be in violation of or may implicate Wisconsin open meetings laws. Please do not reply all to the email. That said, I do completely agree, and I've been taking notes on kind of the documents that you'd like to be shared before your next meeting. We can do the opioid gap needs analysis, the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Housing Analysis that Chief Barnes referenced, the Wausau Police Department data presentations, all those things. If you have other thoughts, please share them. I think sending them to the co-chairs for further dissemination makes total sense, and I can facilitate that. But in short, it depends on how you use it. Out of an abundance of caution, I always counsel against sharing things as committee members via email for that reason.
So if I could just say, as a person who doesn't live, eat, and breathe as much as you all do, that's homeless or unhoused or underserved, I hear this 100-day sprint, and I look at my own life, and I look at year end as a business and holidays, and I ask, how? To me, a resolution that is as large and as grand as this resolution is, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure immediately. I get that we all want to get it fixed, but I got to tell you, first of all, I need all this material and information for my spare time, which I have a lot of, Matt knows, to even feel that I can bring enough value as a business representative and taxpayer. And the second part of that is that I don't see, and this is just my own naivety, I don't see the city and the county governmental agencies solving this without buy-in from the community and the public and the business partners that have to come to the table to solve this. And that's not going to happen in a 100-day sprint, especially when it's going to take us that period of time to even get to a resolution. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you, Kent. And if you look at the bottom of the charter, we have the option for renewal. So, that's always in there. So we can extend, as needed. Go ahead, Terry.
Hi, Ron. I would like to pose a question to the task force. We've presented so many issues here today, and we have so many questions, and that's why I felt that the research that was done by those 2 universities throughout the country might be able to answer some of our questions. They did such extensive research on what works, what doesn't work, on the impact of homelessness on businesses in local communities. And I think they have a lot of insight. So if the task force is interested in me pursuing that and seeing if one of those doctorate individuals would interact with us by Zoom and answer our questions, I'd be happy to pursue that, but I don't want to do that unless the task force has an interest.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. And I think that, the way our charter is written, we can bring experts in or, anybody that we feel would benefit or help this task force. So that's written into the charter already. So thank you. Any other questions, comments Let's say the last thing I have is, I guess, once we can get the dates, times, and locations ironed out, and if we could do that in the next few days. Becky and I looked at the calendar, right? And we went through some dates. There's a couple of days in December, if it's a Wednesday, if that works for everybody, or December 11th and the 18th. And then we go into January, and January 8th and the 22nd work for us. And then looking into February 5th and the 19th works for us as well. We tried to look at a schedule where it's every 2 weeks, but the December dates, because of the holidays, would have been, 1 week after another. So that's, Becky and I's suggestion.
Find out on Wednesday. Not coming here for.
Exactly. Exactly.
So December 11th would work for me, the 18th would not.
Okay.
And are you shooting to be once a month?
We're shooting for every 2 weeks because we have a 100-day charter, but like I said, we can extend if we needed to. So in order to get the business done that we need to do in 100 days, I think every 2 weeks is probably more in line with being able to do that if possible.
And then am I right in assuming that location is limited to either here or council chambers, because this needs to be public? Okay.
I don't know, is it limited to here?
It's not technically limited, but it would need to be open to the public. I think logistically, it's easiest to do either here or the city council chambers. And I believe on the 11th, there is a scheduled meeting, but I can look to verify. Maybe HR Finance actually moved, right? Looking to Kim. Yeah, it did move, so. But logistically, this would be the easiest.
The dates that you mentioned are also Health and Human Services Committee meetings as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's why we thought maybe on those dates we could push it to 4 o'clock or something, after the Health and Human Services meeting. I think there was one date in there that conflicted with Health and Human, or 2.
There were 2 that I heard as I was just looking at the assembly room calendar,
Okay.
but
I think logistically, if we try to keep it between this room and city council, it's easiest, and then we can just coordinate with the dates you pick and get Caitlin in the meeting and figure out where it's going to be.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion, just to be as efficient as possible.
Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll send out the dates that Becky and I are available to the group, and then you guys can chime in and give us your dates and times that work for you, and then we'll try to iron that out.
Say the January dates again.
January, we have the 8th and the 22nd.
One or the other, or
Both.
both?
Go ahead, Vic.
February dates. I was putting down either or, and I picked the one I liked.
I just was making the assumption and just wanted to verify that if we are unable to make a certain date, that we would not send someone else to represent us.
Sorry.
If we were unable to make a certain date, that we would not send someone else to represent us from our facility or agency, that it would just be us, or we're not able to make that meeting and have to get caught up.
Yeah, I don't think it says anything in the charter about sending representatives. That I don't know why that wouldn't be a problem, or why that would be a problem. Or is it?
I'll have to think about that.
We'll let Lance think about that.
Parliamentarian standpoint, your only concern if there is not the flexibility where someone was identified, like Beth Ann's position or designee was expressly within the appointment, then my inclination is to say no. Each of you are appointed as individuals. However, should you have a quorum, there's no problem under Robert's Rules of Order to recognize anyone to provide comment to the task force. So thinking off the top of my head, as long as you have a quorum of actual members present that were appointed, the meeting would continue, and should the chairs and the body not object to the individual that you designated to attend in your stead, they would be able to participate as, to be allowed to offer comment. I don't believe they would be allowed to vote if you took any formal action during your meetings. But I reserve the right to change my opinion on further reflection.
Thank you, Lance.
And can I
Thank you for the
clarify
question.
too? I heard that we shouldn't send materials, helpful materials via email. So what's the forum to getting those
You
materials?
can
to
send
others?
it to the chairs, and then we can disseminate it, and, yep,
Or to Lance, correct? That's fine.
right.
What were the February dates again, please?
We had February 5th and the 19th. I think our 100 days is the end of February, if I'm not mistaken, if we use today's date as a start date.
So only one in December, correct? The 11th?
11th and the 18th,
18th as well?
correct. Right? Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, next thing is, do I have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion from Chief Barnes and second by Kent. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Since we won't have another meeting between now and then. Sure. Sure won't fit one in. Hey, we're the government. We are very efficient, effective.